Hey everyone, welcome back to Tech Tanks. I know it's been a while since I've done a video. I'm going to try to work on that again. Um, I wanted to take the opportunity to make a bit of a different video than I've done before. This one is trying to focus on a topic that I've seen a lot of posts on lately on Reddit and LinkedIn and YouTube, where it's basically how to get into cybersecurity. And I made this video because a lot of the ones that I've seen are either negative, where it's like you can't get in, or I've seen some where they're trying to sell something, and that bothers me. So I wanted to give my perspective, both as a cybersecurity professional, but also a person who works with students to try to pursue their education and also break into the cybersecurity field. Um, so I'm going to try to make this video in less than 20 minutes, and we're going to kind of see where it goes. But um, yeah, let's get started here. I wanted to start off primarily with the big three areas that people talk about, which is experience, certifications in education. Um, when it comes to breaking into cybersecurity, um, the certifications that people bring up, I've seen conversations going all over the place, um, going from you don't need to have any certifications to you need to have the Pen Test Plus or the CISA Plus or whatever. Um, and for education, I've seen people say you don't need a college degree, and then other people say you need to get a college degree. Um, and then obviously with experience, that one's always my favorite because breaking into cybersecurity, right? Starting in cybersecurity, how are you supposed to have experience? Well, the big thing is is cybersecurity an entry level field? Is it something that somebody can just start in? And then you'll get your diehard. No, you have to go to help desk first. I don't know why help desk is the big one, right? But yeah, that's you got to go to help desk first. And you have other people who gatekeepers and that kind of thing. Um, so let me provide my insight on some of this. If you are told you don't need a college education and you don't need certs to break into cybersecurity, I would be very concerned about that in reality. Most of the people that I've witnessed, or I'm sorry, most of the people where I've experienced that being said, they either been in the field for like 20 plus years, and their statement is, "I don't have a college degree and I don't have any certs, and look at me." They got into the field before it was a field, right? Like cybersecurity is a pretty new area of IT as far as for on its own, right? It's one of those things where if they were kind of working the cybersecurity angle of things before it became cybersecurity, and then now they've been in the field for so long, nobody expects them to have any certifications or degrees in it because they probably should be teaching it, right? They know this stuff, but for people breaking into it, that is a lie. Um, whether or not you need a college degree, I would say you could probably break into the field without a college degree. I do think it'll be harder, but um, you're if you want to move up, you're going to need to get a college degree when it's all said and done. So there's that perspective, and that's coming from working in cybersecurity. Um, I know people who don't have a degree, and they've done all right for themselves. Um, but most of the people I work with have a college degree. They have their bachelor's. On a college perspective, when people when I work with people who are going back to college or going to college, I should say, and they already work in IT, I always ask why. Why are you coming back to college? Or coming to college at this point? And it's always the same answer. I can't go any further. That's always the same answer that I get. And so you're going to need to get it in the end. If you have the option to be able to go to college now and get a bachelor's degree, I highly recommend it. Now we'll talk about what to get an education in a little bit. Um, then as far as for certifications, right? And I know I kind of reversed the order than what I have here. As far as for certifications, it is in my experience that if you're trying to get into cybersecurity and you don't at least have a Security Plus, you're really going to have a hard time with it. I'm not going to say it's impossible. I don't think every company is demanding certifications, but at least here in America, um, the Security Plus is considered your baseline, right? Um, and I mean, in my opinion, I think if you're new to the IT field, um, I'm not I don't like pushing a singular company because then it seems like I'm, licking their boots or something. But CompTIA is A plus, Security Plus, and Network Plus. I really like these because they provide you with a pretty decent foundation on everything, right? To get started, right? You get your networking knowledge, you got your security knowledge, you got your everything else knowledge. Um, Now, my view on the A plus, I recently posted in, like somebody in Reddit has like, do I really need to get the A plus? And my answer is no. I've never been asked about my A plus. In all honesty, I've had my A plus for years, and I've never been asked about it. The only reason why I still have it is because good old CompTIA, you get a next level certification, and it renews everything beneath it. So I still have the A plus for that reason. I can't get rid of it. It's like a cockroach. But with that being said, um, the A plus is knowledge that you should have, right? And now part of the issue I have with the A plus is that some of their information gets dated. When I took the exam, I saw connections there. I never even heard of them. Well, let me phrase that. I've never seen them because back when they were still used, I knew nothing about technology. So it could be dated at times, but um, either way, I do think you should at least have that knowledge, even if you don't get the cert. Security Plus, though, is kind of your de facto. And I'm going to show you guys an image here. And warning, there's going to be basically a bright white screen and then an image in the center. So adjust your resolution now or your night light or whatever. Um, I like this one because it does provide some newer certs and things have obviously changed. But this is by no means a full list. And to give you a simple example of that, on the red team part, right, a little bit midway down, they have the EJPT, and that's it. They don't have like the ECPPT, the EWPT, but they got the OffSec stuff on there, right? Now, I mean, whatever your opinion is of these certs is irrelevant. The idea is this is not a definitive list. It's just an example. But I do like the fact that it is a little bit more updated than the next one I'm going to show you here in a moment. But this is kind of a good, you know, cybersecurity certifications image. I really like this one. And I kind of use this to guide me a little bit. And I also use the next one I'm going to show you here in a moment. But the problem that I do have is it really only breaks things down into blue, red, and then just the InfoSec. There's actually a lot more to cybersecurity, which we'll talk about later. But this is kind of a really good image to look at just to get an idea. If you're focusing on blue side, if you don't have the Security Plus, or really if you're focusing on anything, but most people will start with blue, you need to have that Security Plus as the baseline. As far as for the CISA Plus, the CASP, right, the Pen Test Plus, right? I love the fact they don't even have that one on the red team side, but they have the Security CISA and CASP on the blue. Anyway, you need to figure out kind of the path you're wanting to go down and start finding those certs that match up. But for me, like I said, and I've probably said this like 4 times, so I'm going to move on after this. The Sec Plus is your baseline that you need to have. The next the next one I want to show you, and it's another white screen warning, is this one, and this is ITA certification roadmap from CompTIA. I mean, the problem is this is 6 years old. They may have a newer one now, but I've had this one for a while. But what I like about this one is that they talk about, you know, intermediate certifications, the advanced ones, and then the expert ones. Now, this is part of the reason why I wanted to show both of these is because if you notice, CompTIA lists these certs as expert, right? They have the CISP, they have their CASP. If we go back to the previous one, these are listed as advanced, right? There's the CISP. Now, however you want to, you know, look at these, one thing to just keep in mind is that these certs, like depending on who you talk to, is going to determine their relevancy. The CEH and the Pen Test Plus, at least definitely 6 years ago, I can confidently say this. There's no difference between them. I don't know why one's intermediate and one's advanced. I think that's a little bit of a joke. I never got the Pen Test Plus, but I did look into it. I studied for it, but after looking at everything, like if you have the CEH, there's no point in getting the Pen Test Plus. Now, I will say CompTIA has stepped up some of their certifications over the last few years, so perhaps things have changed. But you know, the CEH gets no love from the hacking community, which I disagree with to a point. I think if you're wanting to be a pen tester, you're not going to have the CEH for the most part, or at least you didn't get it for that reason. But the CEH has its value for more of the blue side, and in my view, the Pen Test Plus is the same thing. You're not going to have the Pen Test Plus and be able to say, "Oh, I'm a hacker because I have the Pen Test Plus," right? You go if you're wanting to become a hacker, I'm going to go back to the other one here. You get the PNPT, which, by the way, that should be with the OSCP in my opinion. I did not make this, so I'm not saying these are the definitely the beginner ones and these are the intermediate ones. But uh, you get the PNPT, you get the ECPPT, the CPTS, the OSCP. These are the ones you get if you want to actually be a hacker. Now, am I saying all these are great? I mean, sure. I I know a lot of people have an issue with the OSCP, but it's other than the fact that it tests the strength of your hair follicles before as you're ripping your hair out during the exam. It's not that bad. But PNPT, I never took that exam. I'll be honest, but I will say Heath Adams, that guy is he's a blessing to cybersecurity and to pen testers all over. I love the guy's training material. I've been following Heath Adams since he was on Udemy, only on Udemy. So anyway, let's talk about education. Um, Bachelor's, master's. If the reason I didn't bother putting a PhD on here is because if you're considering a PhD, I really don't know why you're watching this video anyway. There you go. And then boot camps. So I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna start with boot camps. I don't know why I have this fascination with starting at the bottom. Um, there's two types of boot camps, and I want to make sure I'm very clear on which one I'm talking about. You have boot camps that prep you for a cert, and then you have boot camps that will, it's like, pay us $3,500 or whatever, and we're going to teach you everything you need to know to be in, to work in a SOC, and then you'll land a job. We'll give you everything you need to land a job. So those are the two different types of boot camps here. I don't have an issue with boot camps and certifications as long as they're good. My view is check their, reviews and all that. I hate with a passion any boot camp that says they're gonna get you a job. They're gonna teach you everything you need to know to get a job, whether it's cybersecurity or whether it's software development. That's another common one that I see. I hate them. I think they're a ripoff. I think they're wrong. Um, I would avoid them with a, with I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Just stay the hell away from boot camps. Um, so as far as for education, like the bachelor's or master's degrees and that kind of thing, um, my view is that you should be trying to get your bachelor's. Now, then the question with that is, well, what do I get my bachelor's in? Do I get it in cybersecurity? My opinion is typically no. Um, and I'll I'll explain why here in a moment. Let's kind of just talk about the levels of education. As far as for a master's degree, usually those are reserved for people who want to move into management, right? Move further up the chain. And I'm not saying that, your supervisor is going to necessarily have a master's degree, but the further up you go, more likely than not, you're going to find those with a master's degree. And that's usually where those ones fall in. So my opinion is you should strive to get your bachelor's. And then work on getting into the field, whether it be IT, cybersecurity, whatever. Um, and then as time goes on, if a master's is going to be a necessity, by all means pursue it. Nothing wrong with a master's degree. Um, but bachelor's is where you're going to want to at least be. Now, before I talk about what you should get your bachelor's in, I want to show you this next image, and warning, bright white screen again. So there you go. I love this graphic because it's when I first came across it, it was basically like when someone says they work in cybersecurity, right? And then it showed all this. Um, Cybersecurity is a huge field, like most areas in IT, right? Um, but cybersecurity is just massive because it's everywhere, right? It's in your software development, it's in your networking, it's in your architecture, whether it be your physical architecture or it's your um, well, I just said networking and all that, but it's basically if it's IT, it's got cybersecurity somewhere, right? Um, so looking at this, there's obviously a lot of different options. Now, you don't have to pick one field and stick there, right? I've worked in security operations, I've worked in security architecture, I've worked in risk assessment, I've even worked in governance. Um, and through the governance, I work a lot with frameworks and standards. So with that being said, I mean, you could bounce around and, it's fun. I always like to leave options open, but we'll talk about that part in a moment. When it comes to getting your education, when I get asked, what should I get my bachelor's degree in? I typically answer a generalized IT field or a generalized IT degree, right? And I'm going to explain why. If you're going into it like I did, When you go to get your education and you have no background knowledge on IT, you need to get a generalized knowledge, right? You need to understand networking. You need to understand software development or scripting and programming, however you want to look at it. You need to understand, you know, the basically everything. You need to have a little bit of knowledge of everything. I'm not saying you have to be able to design a network. I'm not, or anything like that. You have to be able to, write out programs, but you need to understand the fundamentals of how it all works, because your job is going to be to secure those, right? And those being whichever route you go. But if you work in a SOC, for example, you should have a good understanding of how networking works. You should understand how web applications work, right? And the reason for that is because if your job is you're working in a SOC and there's a web server and then there's the firewall and all that, how are you going to understand what a SQL injection looks like if you don't even understand what SQL is? If you don't understand how a web application works, if you don't understand how the encoding works and things like that, that's the point, right? So a generalized knowledge gives you at least a basic foundation of IT related fields, and then you start getting the certification should be to specialize in the field that you want to pursue, right? And then if you pursue the master's degree, it should be in that area as well. So for me, if you don't have a generalized IT foundation, you should get your degree in IT. Now, obviously, the question comes up: what about when I'm applying for jobs? I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever seen a job say a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity, and that's all they would accept. It's typically or a related field, right? In computer science or a related field. I constantly have applied for jobs where it's like they want a degree in computer science. I don't have a degree in computer science, right? But it's been fine. I've landed in the field. So there you go. So my opinion when it comes to what you should get your degree in is depends on your background already, but typically a bachelor's in generalized IT. That's my opinion. So this is my last slide here. My advice. Um, so the big things that I always recommend is always be studying, always be practicing. Um, right? Cybersecurity constantly changes. It has changed so much over the last 5 years, even over the last 3 years, right? AI has made a lot of changes as far as for some companies wanting to implement AI and the risk that imposes, malicious actors using AI for malicious purposes, but also even in our field, right, working in cybersecurity, how can we use AI? Right, I have AI that I have, running within my own environment, and it's holding on to frameworks and documentation and things like that, generalized documentation, nothing, you know, uh, proprietary or anything like that, but it's like NIST documentation, for example, right? And it's holding on to that, and I can use that AI to help me sift through the thousands and thousands of pages that is documentation. So that part, it's really helpful on how I could do that. I've also used it um, in vulnerability analysis and pen testing, where I'm looking at a piece of code and I use AI to help me analyze it. I'm not a web developer. I know enough PHP to cause some problems and to break things. That's about it. So I've used AI quite a bit to help with that, and tie that together with some scripting, and you got yourself quite the tool. So, but that's just in the last few years, right? So it's constantly changing. So you should always be studying. You should always be practicing. Um, and then networking. Get to know people in the field. You should be trying to meet new people, reach out to them on LinkedIn. Um, don't be one of those creepers that just sends a connection request. "Oh, I'd like to connect with you." No, it's like, hey, I saw you and I went, you're an alumni of the school I'm going to, or I see you and I are part of the same club. I'm really interested in, trying to meet people in the field, get some advice. Would you mind? You're going to get turned down at times, but you'd be surprised how many people are be like, yeah, I'd be happy to help. We've all been there, right? So network. Sacrificing a goat might help you a little bit. I'm not going to lie. And then keep striving, keep pushing for it. Right now, I'll be honest, the field is flooded. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. You go to LinkedIn and you see a job was posted 2 hours ago and there's 500 applicants, right? It's a flooded market right now. So there's a couple of things I recommend when it comes to that, right? One, improve your resume as best as you can, right? Now that there's a couple ways to do that. The number one thing is also structuring it. Okay. And you can get a lot of different perspectives. You can talk to 10 different people who work in cybersecurity and get 10 different responses on how your resume should be. But I have provided some resume guidance to students that have been applying for jobs that I've worked with. And, they made some changes and they started getting calls. Right now, that's anecdotal, and I'll be honest, it's not going to always work. But that's one thing is how you structure it. The other one is when you first compete for a job, when you apply, you're competing on paper, right? You may be able to, what is the term? You can sell ice to an Eskimo, or well, that's not exactly maybe the best way to put it, but I mean, basically, if you can sell water to a fish, right, that does you no good if you're not talking to them, right? And I can tell you, as someone who has gone through the hiring process of on the company side of it, after HR sifts through their initial ones, and then the initial person, I don't even know what that position's called, but when they, go through theirs and do their preliminary interviews, and then they send me, for one job, I'll get 20 resumes after they've already, HR's already gone through a few hundred. This person's already gone through, like 30 or 40. Now I get it down to 20, and I have to start picking and choosing. I don't have time to interview 20 people. So I have to go off of their resume, right? So your resume is competing. So improve it. Get the right certs, and the right certs depends on what you want to pursue. Hopped on LinkedIn. I'm using LinkedIn as an example, but there's other sites out there as well. But find those jobs you want and say, what are the certs in demand? And those are the certs you should get. Okay. Now, I personally seem to love getting certifications. I have 20 of them now. But I'll be honest, I probably claim like 6. Those are the big ones those are the ones that are in demand. So get the certs that you need. I do highly recommend getting the bachelor's degree if you can, but if you can't, don't let that be what stops you, right? Pursue the cert. Show what you can do. And then networking. Those are going to be your big things that are going to help you out. Okay? So that is my advice to you. And anyone who's watching this, who's in the field and has advice that works for them, by all means, please put it in the comments. If you have differing views than me, I still want them in the comments. I think it'll be great. The goal of this video is to help people get into a field that they may want to break into. But one last thing to keep in mind is that, as I said before, cybersecurity is everywhere, right? If you're interested in networking, you can do security and networking at the same time. Build it securely, okay? So I'll try to make more videos. I am planning on trying to get some certification series going, help people out with that. Probably do some Hack the Box videos as well, because that's always a good time. But until next time, I hope this helps someone, and appreciate comments anytime.